This is the Fixerpunk podcast, the podcast that encourages Democrats who are still battling to get us out of this debt ceiling hostage situation to, in the words of Brandon Cutler, stand tall, don't back down, and be elite when facing Kevin McCarthy and the Blackpool Combat Club. I'm Grayson Peltier. This is a Fixing the Fixerpunk episode, which I typically release these once a month, so this is going to be more of an unstructured rant than the typical episode. And I was actually planning to possibly convert this episode over to being a TikTok live show. However, multiple things kept going wrong. I kept not feeling good about the idea because this tends to be where I get a little bit more personally vulnerable. And I haven't really had much time to test out all the technicalities of TikTok Live. Then I just decided to record this just as a normal episode. So I kind of failed myself a little bit. And that's been kind of a theme of a lot of things lately, is that I've kind of failed myself and kind of backed away from things that I shouldn't have backed away from. I don't know. But if you want to see when I do go live on TikTok, make sure you're following at Fixerpunk, Fixerpunk, because the goal of this was to share some of my experiences and rant about some of my experiences while also possibly giving you some things that you can apply in your own situation, or at least help you to feel like you're not alone. And maybe a live stream would help with that end, but I just didn't feel like it tonight. And I've actually really had this plan to take this to being a full-on live stream for at least the last 6-8 months or so. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast as well. And I thought that with the amount of time that I've had freed up after last election season, I could have set this up to be on the live stream and have everything all ready. But somehow things just keep happening to me. And that's one of the things that I'm realizing now, is that everything takes a lot. This doesn't even just apply to I said this is a rule around like health related things on a couple prior episodes, but it applies to everything. Everything takes longer than it should. And we don't have very many hard and fast rules around here about personal and social change, because we believe that people know instinctively what they should do. And it is the lack of resources and the way that society is structured that doesn't allow people to perform at their best that prevents it, not the lack of an authoritarian system to push people into things that they cannot do. But if I were to state a rule, or if I were to state a list of rules, certainly on it would be, as soon as you notice that there is something that is going wrong, do not let it linger without taking care of it. Because that has been like a primary mistake in my entire life, is I have had problems that have come up, things from the head injury that I had, things that in bad jobs, issues with medications, and I have just let them, because I'm like, okay, this is good enough, I can survive this. I have just let them go and keep going and going and going, and keeping me from my true potential for so long. And then it comes to it, it's been months, it's been years, and the same thing has happened and nothing has been done about it. So when you see a problem and you feel like something is not right, it's time to do something about it. And obviously, I haven't felt so right about how this podcast has been going, and I failed to do something about it. So that's one of the things, is that the intention here was to start to create a more socially progressive vision for self-improvement, and finding a more a way to improve yourself that isn't as judgmental or based upon some of the ideas that have been internalized in us through the ruling parties and through capitalism especially, and the whole self-help space that has been infiltrated by all these people that only have solutions that work for the upper classes. People don't really think about the solutions that will work for people that are in worse situations. And that was kind of the intent here. And fundamental to that is that for people to reach their best potential, for all people to be able to reach their best potential, we have to have policies and systems in terms of government and in terms of economics that allow that to happen. And that is where the podcast is kind of taken a turn into, is addressing those individual issues. But it's sort of a good metaphor for my life, because I've had to get dragged into sort of crisis after crisis situation, random problem after random problem that is preventing me from doing the longer lasting, longer running work to build something out. And that is going to always be a challenge for people. There are ways that we can make things better. We could talk about on a systemic level. We can think about this whole debt ceiling situation, this completely contrived, made up warfare, class warfare, really, that the GOP has come up with as a distraction and a way to get us away from doing the real work that is necessary to solve the problems that actual people in America have, actually solve the problems of people who are not getting paid enough at their jobs, not being treated well at their jobs, don't have health care, people that are struggling with all types of forms of discrimination, whether that's racial or whether that's based on gender or sexual orientation. We are having to take time away from those real problems to deal with these contrived problems that are made up by people who want to oppress other people. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people in everyday lives. And there's a lot more banal versions of things that take you off track from what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. And I've certainly fallen victim to those. But a lot of, and the reason why the number of political topics that come up on this podcast is rather restricted is because a lot of it is, in fact, just a distraction. I know from my experience in politics that a lot of these things are basically just sideshows that are meant to make people feel upset about things, and that they're meant to basically just have you in a constant state of crisis and not able to move forward, and in fact, taking back the progress that has been given to you. And that is a lot of the social engineering around society, is they want to take back whatever progress is going to normal, average, working class people like you and I. And it will be a fight to just keep that minimal level of progress. The level of progression we saw through the COVID pandemic was very astonishing in terms of economic injustice and inequality, and the solutions that obviously it hurt a lot of people. But the widespread political agreement around actually helping people was profound. And for a while then, in my own life, and I would think maybe in a lot of your lives, as I'm seeing that financially I'm doing better, I'm at my best position financially ever, and I'm seeing things just keep getting better overall, economically, in terms of even job opportunities. You're seeing, we were seeing that even low wage jobs were treating workers a little bit better, not a lot better, but a little bit better, that there's enough of an opening in there that we can go in there, stick something in, and we can claim our stake and claim our space to start building a new world and to start getting into the vision that I had at the beginning of the year, which is killing the old business of how things have been done in our economy and our government. There was enough space that we could get in there and climb to the top of that ladder. There are a few seconds where we get in there, but it feels like that is gone. And that is exactly what they want you to believe. That is exactly what this drumbeat of recession and the debt ceiling and all that, that's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that that opportunity that was created for you there is now gone. And I just feel, I oftentimes ruminate and feel sad myself about, okay, I've taken that opportunity, I've lost it. And I should have acted 1-2 years ago to go further. And now we're in situations where, on a personal level, the political stuff is starting to ramp back up again, but it hasn't ramped back up the way I want it to. This podcast hasn't quite gotten as far as I've wanted it to. And then there is this opportunity I think that opportunity in a way is something that you have to very, very carefully define. And when you're in a state of desperation, which is what they're trying to do to all of us economically, all of us in the working class, all of us who want to create a different world, all of us who are working on diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're trying to make us all scared, and they're trying to push us all backwards. And to then think that whatever scraps they give us are in fact an opportunity and that that's a good thing. And I think that a lot of us are going to lose focus about what we wanted to do, what our goals, what our dreams, what our intentions were, because we've gotten into this crisis economic state again, and we're possibly going to go into a recession. Even with the debt ceiling deal, it's possible we're going to go into a serious recession. But I want you to keep that frame, and I'm trying to keep that frame in my own mind of what is it that my purpose actually is here. And I know that my purpose is to advocate for others and to find solutions to our economic and political state so that people who need to be recognized in our society, people who have been oppressed for way too long, working under far too low of wages, without the safety nets and resources they need, they can get those and they can achieve their full potential. And I don't want to lose sight of that. And there is sort of going to be this sort of wisdom associated with a lot of the economic talk. They're saying, well, okay, once we hit this recession, they're going to be like, maybe it's not so wise to pursue your dreams anymore. And maybe, and I go back and forth with myself about this. But the other night actually last night on AEW Dynamite, there were two really good stories of Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara. And Sammy Guevara was actually, he retweeted me, which I was so happy that Sammy Guevara, pro wrestler of AEW, retweeted me. But he was talking about how he would not sell out. He was offered by the world champion basically money to not challenge the world champion, but he is challenging him. I'm not going to get too much into detail about that. But he says that he's been offered promotions at jobs. He's been offered more money, but that means that he would have to grow up and go into the real world. And he chose not to do that. And look, he's on national television. He's gotten on national stage as a professional wrestler. He has achieved his dreams and gone beyond what others have expected of him. And I know that not everybody can do that. Not everybody can reach that level. But that kind of inspired me in a way, because I'm seeing, okay, am I going to have to push myself back into a crappy marketing job in order to survive? Am I going to need to settle into corporate America and just making money for somebody without having purpose of helping others and trying to bring solutions to this dire political state where work is desperately needed to be done and nobody's really doing it? Or will this all work? And I really want to, even though I've probably screwed up the past few months of not making as much progress as I want to, I still want to continue with this. And Darby Allin also made some remarks about his journey. He says that a lot of people told him to not expect a lot in his life. They told him to, they told him not to aim so high, when he graduated from high school, and he listened to them, and he said it landed him working at the 99-cent store cleaning toilets, when his purpose was also to become a professional wrestler, and he became a TNT champion. Both Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin were TNT champions. Now they're challenging in a four-way for the world championship this weekend at AEW Double or Nothing. And that also inspired me, because there's a lot of people would think that someone like myself who has autism, who has gone through going to college and got a degree, but my degree maybe isn't in the most like high paying of fields. It isn't like a terribly high paying thing to be a political science major working in political and legislative advocacy or in political communications. but I know that is where my purpose lies. And I could either choose the path of being stuck and just listening to what people tell me to do with my life, or I could choose the path that could lead me to my dreams and to a level of success that I wanted to reach all along. But I do recognize there is practicality, there is reality, and there is also time. And there's also the opportunity to have some fun before the world starts to crumble down around me, which I had spoken on the January Fixing the Fixerpunk episode after I went to AEW in LA, about how I felt like I wasn't really in the moment and I wasn't really enjoying myself because I was thinking about all this economic stuff already that's coming up and all the things that could possibly happen to me financially. Even though I'm doing well, again, I'm doing the best I've done financially ever in my life right now, but I was still worried about that, worried about the job market and worried about all these things that are happening. And I was like, if only I can have another moment where I can really just enjoy myself and not think about that stuff, I would do anything to do that. So I'm kind of getting a do-over. I am planning to be at, and I have my ticket for AEW in San Diego on May 31st. And May 31st, that's the night before we're supposed to hit the debt limit, which is June 1st, according to the Treasury Secretary. And also going into June, I'm thinking that possibly there may be some recession stuff going on, some economic turmoil that's going to happen, and it's going to come regardless of the outcome. So I have termed this in my mind the super kick party ahead of the apocalypse. And I plan to have a really good time. And I was even going to make some even bigger plans, but I have to be back home the next day. I was going to stay out there, but I can't. I have stuff to do. I have family members to take care of, things like that. But I was going to really give it a last hurrah of really, really enjoying myself before I know that this economic system is going to drag me down and take me back into the pits of crappy jobs again. But remembering that experience, I think I'm going to take a much more positive outlook to all of this. And I'm going to have a ton of fun. But hopefully it'll be the start of, and I like having these really, really beautiful moments of having a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. Lately it's been wrestling shows because that's been my thing. But I like the idea of having those big moments where you can just celebrate and enjoy and realize that everything is going to be all right. And knowing that you've accomplished something, and knowing that even if you don't have a really good, fun experience, that you can hang your hat on that experience that you had then, and you can think about that, and the energy of that will carry you through a long period of time. So some people might say, oh yeah, it's irresponsible to go and party and have fun before major economic collapse. I say, do so responsibly. Be careful. Don't spend too much money. Don't put yourself in a bad situation, but knowing that can kind of give you hope, and knowing this is why I do this kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that I can enjoy in life, because the self-help, especially the financial self-help motto of basically just depriving yourself forever. What is the end goal of that? Why the heck are you putting yourself through all that suffering, all that pain of going and working extra jobs and all that? For what reason? How is it going to materially make your life better? How is it going to make you happy? What is going to make you feel good about all this stuff that's making you feel bad? And if you lose sight of that, if you lose sight of what's actually going to make you feel good from all those bad experiences, then you're not going to want to engage in those bad experiences at all. So it is important to give yourself hope through whatever means necessary. One place that I still kind of struggle to give myself enough hope to push myself forward on is in my fitness, which I have kind of stagnated. I feel like I've gotten stronger, but of course the thing that you fight through, and just about everyone out there, the thing that motivates you to fight through when it comes to your workouts and all of that is summer. And summer is coming right around the corner. I am still in a situation where I probably improved to an extent, but I've also gotten worse in a different way. I even enrolled myself in like an online fitness challenge, and I'm still having trouble motivating myself to track calories, motivating myself to keep going on stuff. I'm being consistent in the gym, but in terms of diet, I fall apart at night. That's still happening, still an issue. And I've been kind of nervous to even like check my weight and take progress pictures and stuff like that. And I felt like I needed a way to push myself forward a little bit more. But it's also been sort of just my body for some reason, even though like work has been like very light, very slow. For some reason, my body has just been kind of getting janky on me. Like it feels kind of like it's giving up. Like it just wants to eat and it just wants to sleep all the time. And that's pretty hard. And then, of course, this economic uncertainty that is coming in my mind. I'm like, okay, this summer, am I really going to need to be in full gear ready shape? Am I really going to need to be in this kind of shape? Am I going to be at the beach at all? Am I going to be at the pool at all? Or am I going to be in a miserable job and then just crying myself to sleep and through the weekends because of that miserable job, and it doesn't really matter how my body will look at that point? But again, I have to find a way to give myself hope for those things to come to pass and for it to be worth it, for me to do that. But sometimes that just isn't enough. And on the flip side of enjoyment and all of that is that I have noticed that maybe I've built a tolerance to certain types of enjoyment, certain types of stimulation, certain forms of dopamine. My ADHD medication does feel a little bit weaker now. I have to talk to the doctor about that. But also in terms of like food, one of my like key nutrition strategies has been basically just substituting all the kind of junk food stuff that I normally like to eat. Like I'm sort of a healthy eater, but kind of not. I do tend to always have some sort of protein and vegetables with like my main largest meals. And I'm fairly consistent about that. I do try to get a good amount of just like healthier carbs and vegetables along with leaner protein. But I am definitely the kind of person who has a ton of stuff that's like snacks and kind of junk food type stuff. And I have like bought all these little substitute snacks. Like I substitute like salty snacks and chips for like big bags of Skinny Pop popcorn, Fiber 170 calorie brownies for like when I used to buy like large packets of those like cheap generic Oreo cookies. Now it's Fiber One cookies, or Fiber One brownies, Quest frosted cookies, which are only like 90 calories each, protein bars for something more substantial, and then I've really gotten into Chobani zero sugar Greek yogurt. I'm actually going to post sort of a Costco haul. Typically, I get a lot of my stuff at Costco on the TikTok and possibly the Instagram, both at Fixerpunk, of kind of the stuff that I use as like ways of substituting that unhealthy food that I would have tons of into healthier options. But I am still binging on that. I'm still having huge amounts of Skinny Pop popcorn. I'm having like 3 or 4 fiber brownies. I'm having 2 yogurt cups, and I'm still like I have a thing with nuts. Like I tend to eat a lot of nuts, and I know those are high fat, high calories, but they're still healthier, I guess. But I will have a sizable amount of walnuts. I'll put that in the yogurt, and I'll just keep going and going. And I have trouble controlling myself, trouble tracking, and all of that. And part of it is definitely the motivation thing, but there is sort of, obviously there's external motivation, but then there's sort of this internal state of motivation and like the way your body goes. And like, I'm autistic, so autistic burnout is clearly an issue. It's kind of weird because like even my psychologist is like, what would you be burned out about? because you haven't had that much work going on. But it does seem like there is that, like, even if you know you have like I could in theory set aside like a specific weekend, a specific date. And I did with this fitness challenge, I do have a specific set date that I have to submit progress pictures at the end of this. It's not coached or anything. I wish I had a coach and I could do that. But if your body and your mind are not synchronized with that goal, if they don't have the resources to keep that up, if you are pushing it to do stuff when it can only like do certain basic things, like if you're at a point in your life where like, or if you're just having a bad day where your body is just only going so far and it's only letting you do just the basic stuff in that day, and like all of your household tasks are draining everything out, then good luck getting that workout in, no matter how motivated you are, no matter whether or not you have like a deadline for yourself, whatever the extrinsic motivation you've put in. If your body is just not there, good luck if your body works like mine. There are some people that are probably tougher than me. And that's something I struggle with a lot, is that I'm not as tough as I should be. I'm not as, I guess, resilient as I should be in terms of achieving goals and getting them. But there could be also sort of the factor that maybe I've weakened myself a little bit by not pushing myself, but there is also a limit. So it's that interesting balance. And I think that's something that you can't really measure within yourself. It's hard to measure that within yourself and to know when can you actually push yourself more. And it's hard to get like professional guidance on this stuff. Like, I've wanted to do it for fitness. I've wanted to do it for my own personal goals, but people that actually get like neurodivergence and all of this stuff, it's hard to find the right people, but people that'll actually push you forward on things and actually make you improve. Because I've gotten certain like coaching and therapy, and they're just like, and that's just the way it is. And that's just the way it is. You have to cope with the fact that your body won't go any further. You have to just cope with the fact that things aren't going to get any better. Or how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? And it's just that type of stuff. And why are you anxious? What is making you anxious? It's like, damn it, I can't achieve anything. I can't seem to make any progress on my goals, and that's what's upsetting me. And I need strategies, I need ideas on how to get better at that. And it's hard to develop that from within yourself. And one of the things about coming from a less advantageous situation is that you may not have an environment that's supportive of that, and you may not be economically able to do those things. Or you might just be, even if you're like myself, you have the means to go out and do that. To get the help that you need, you might be reluctant to do so because you're like, who knows what's going to happen? Recession's around the corner. Debt ceiling might not get raised. The United States might default on its currency. Why would I do the work on myself? And of course, also, like if you're like me and you live with a family member, you live at home, they might criticize a little bit. And they might say, well, that's a bad decision for what you're doing. Like the fitness stuff, my mom's a pretty harsh critic of that, especially. She thinks that a lot of like, and there are a lot of scams out there. And I want to possibly do like episodes that are just around debunking and dealing with scams and frauds, because I've certainly known people that were victims of scams and frauds and stuff like that. And I've gotten really, really good at sniffing them out and being critical of people. So I've wanted to do some episodes that are just dedicated to that. But you'll have people around you that are pretty critical, and they're telling you, well, no, you should just, you don't really need help on those things. And I've been listening to a lot of like Chris Van Vlie's Insight podcast, and he had a guest on who was saying that he has coaches and experts that help him through everything, every specific area that he's trying to improve in his life. And obviously that's unreasonable for somebody who is not doing so well economically or financially. But when you want to make that investment and other people just don't understand it, it can be a challenge. And in general, a lot of times your personal life can get a little too complicated. And that's kind of a different topic, is that I do find that I may be draining myself out a little bit too much on random, like personal, like items. Like I feel I've made my life maybe a little bit too complicated. Like even on a physical level, like I have a ton of clutter, a ton of messes, And people get on me for how messy I am, but I save stuff because I'm like, okay, I'm going to get back around to that. I'm going to get back around to that. But just recently I was trying to look for something that I desperately needed. There was a gift certificate that I thought I'd put in a safe place, but I couldn't find it. And I'm looking around and, oh my God, all this stuff that's around, all this stuff that's just laying around here, and how I even like plan out my meals and my eating and all that. I'm like spending perhaps too much time in the grocery store. For some reason, I'm always slower than everybody else at the grocery store. And again, I'm neurodivergent. I have autism and ADHD, so that's definitely plays into it. But I feel like my personal life sometimes slows me down because I have made it terribly inefficient. And household stuff and all that, and I have to find a better way to make it efficient, but sometimes I can't find those solutions within myself. And that's a little bit of a challenge. And trying to find the right solutions and the ones that work for me, because the default solutions that you see out there may or may not actually work for you. As much as I'd love to hire people to just handle stuff for me, obviously I can't do that. Most of you probably can't do that too. But there have to be ways to make things more efficient and prioritize to be able to do stuff that's important, like record these podcasts and improve in my professional life. And when you find those solutions, then everything seems to be kind of magical. When you get good at those things, then it starts to feel good. Like I used to leave laundry around for way too long, but now I'm getting really good at making sure that's getting done on a regular basis. And I've made progress on that. It's not a thing that's like materially getting me closer to my goals. And that's one of the things is maybe I'm not progressing in the right areas in the right ways. But once you find those solutions, then it starts to become a lot more intuitive. And even in terms of fitness, I've gotten good at working out and getting to the gym and making sure that gets done. But am I taking up too much of my resources on things that don't matter that much? Now, my mom would like me to believe that I shouldn't be using up my resources to go watch wrestling. But again, that's something that makes me feel good. That's something that makes me motivated to want to do the other stuff and to deal with the other crap in my life. Pro wrestling has been super motivational for me, and motivational way more than typical motivational books, and certainly more motivational than most of my therapists. So this is all very individualized. And when you're not able to be yourself, then even if you are put in a situation where somebody else wants you to try to grow, like in that Sammy Guevara example where he's getting promotions at work and being told that he can go into this path, but he wouldn't be happy with it. Even if he decided to give up his dreams, then it's still going to be in the back of his head, and he would not remotely perform at his highest level in those jobs and that promotion because he had to, quote unquote, grow up. That stuff sticks with you. It's not going to be your ideal situation. So even if you have the skills, the talent, the expertise to do something, if your passion isn't in it and you don't really have the emotion for it and you don't have that drive for it, it's not going to come to pass the way you want. And even if you're just not happy in the situation you're in, it's not going to come to pass. And this is a lot of times with employers, what they'll do is they'll try to motivate employees and try to make them do things by just grinding at them, getting angry at them. And there's some sort of shock response. People try to respond. They'll try to comply to all the micromanagement, all the nonsense that managers pull off to try to make you perform better, performance reviews, whatever. But if it's really, your heart's really not in it, and you're not really being rewarded for it, and you're not really feeling good about the place that you're in, none of that negative reinforcement is going to do anything, especially if you're economically deprived, if you're having to work 2 jobs, if you're not getting paid enough, if you're living in a bad living situation, if you don't have the health care you need, you're not going to be able to perform well at that job. You're not going to be able to perform well for that employer, no matter how much they poke and prod and push you to try to perform well. And your destiny is not going to come to pass, and they're not going to get what they need either. And I think that a lot of the people that are like, shut up and go back to work on the conservative side, they're just like, take a job, take any job, the old welfare to work motto. They don't realize that they are not going to get the performance, and they're not going to get the ideal performance out of people by just shaming them into working crappy jobs. You have to actually make people feel like they're valued, make people feel like they're getting closer to their purpose or closer to their goals, whether that's through financial compensation or through a more meaningful, socially impactful, or personally impactful type of working environment, and even good, kind people who care about you in leadership in those environments. It's those things that'll actually increase economic productivity, not making people work more hours. And to the working more hours part, I was going to make a post about this. I probably will on the TikTok and on the Instagram at Fixerpunk. But Exos, which is a performance, basically a high-performance fitness and training program group that's used by a lot of like the top Olympic, NFL, NBA, MLB athletes. These are the world's top experts in high performance. They have moved to a 4-day work week. They're reducing the number of hours and days that their staff has to work because they know that that increases performance, which is a point that I brought up in one of my prior episodes when I was talking about excessive work hours. So just pushing people to work more, especially pushing people to work more in a job that they don't like, isn't going to improve overall economic productivity. It's certainly not going to make your life any better. So obviously this is definitely an unstructured rant. That's what these always are. But I think the conclusion we're kind of realizing is that, and I go back to this point that I brought up in a few episodes ago, today's nuisance can be tomorrow's champion. And I think that this 4 pillars storyline in AEW and especially Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara coming up and becoming who they've become is definitely inspiring me to believe more and more in that. And I believe we can start to see if we stand up politically to make sure that we can be our best and bring others up along with us, I think we can start to make change and not get so distracted by these crises. Do what you have to do, and I want to get a little bit more practical. I don't have the answers. I came into this podcast thinking that I would have the answers to give you, the solutions to give you, but oftentimes I'm just coming with more questions. But if any of what I've said kind of appeals to you, if you have any personal stories, anything going along these lines, then I do definitely want to hear from you. I want you to reach out, call in 844-477-PUNK, 844-477-7865. Leave a message. Let me know what you think. But for now, I do want to keep everybody encouraged and motivated and knowing that a new future, and I need to convince myself. I'm talking to myself here most of the time on these episodes. I'm talking to myself, but we need to stay convinced that a new and better future is really possible above the noise of all of these crises. And we can have a fun, exciting world that makes us pumped up, that makes us stoked to want to even do those hard things in life. And if we make the world where that's possible, where we have what we need to recover and to improve our health, keep ourselves in good health, keep ourselves emotionally well, and we have that motivation. We have that baseline level of safety, security, our needs taken care of, and then we have that motivation to push ourselves further and know that those things are real, know that they're possible. Then we can have a super kick party above the apocalypse. We can have our fun and we can enjoy what it is we want to enjoy in life and do the work that's necessary to get there, because we know that it is something that is there, that the bad outcome is not 100% certain, that there is something to change. Because if there's nothing for us to change, then why would you expend any effort moving an immovable object? But I don't believe this is an immovable object. I believe we'll find an outcome and a solution to this debt ceiling situation. And over time, as we change people's opinions about who they are and make people understand the message of that things can get better, and that you don't have to constantly work yourself into a pit just to survive, and that you can uplift others at the same time. This isn't a zero-sum game. Then we can make progress slowly and surely, and we are booking the long-term storytelling of a better future for ourselves and for others. Well, I thank you for taking the time to listen today. I hope you'll join me for the next episode, and follow along on social media at Fixerpunk on Instagram and TikTok, on Twitter at Grayson Nation. And I will see you again next week. Not sure when I'm going to record next week, maybe before, maybe after AEW Dynamite. But whenever it comes out, do subscribe so you'll get notified for it. And I really do hope that you will join me again for the next episode, because I do appreciate you and appreciate your time and your support.